Hi, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business team. I am here and I'm so excited to be here today to introduce to the world someone very dear to me and someone who is making an impact and influencing people on such a high level that you can't even imagine. I am with Dave Albin of Firewalk Adventures. And let me just tell you a little bit about this man who is very ornery, by the way. He is starting a podcast. This is the very first podcast episode, and it's going to be all about helping people in such a huge way that they'll never be the same again. He is an amazing man who has put on firewalks for over 20 years for Tony Robbins. He's done them in his own business for decades, and I'm amazed by him. He's very ornery and he's very silly, but I can tell you he has got some major gifts and talents that the world needs. Dave, welcome to your podcast, episode number 1.
Thanks, Kim. First of all, let me say thank you for all your help and your guidance and really your encouragement to step forward and do this and share with the world, what I'm about to share.
I am so proud of you because, starting a podcast is really a big commitment. Yeah. People don't realize, that it's not just, say a couple words and then everybody just rushes and downloads your podcast. It's something that it needs to have, quality content so that people want to come back time and again. And you, sir, offer that. Tell me about this podcast. Like, why are you doing a podcast at all?
Well, when I retired from Tony Robbins a few years ago, I had a long conversation with him in the green room. And one of the last things he said to me is, with great wisdom comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. So I've been immersed in the personal development industry for 25 years. So I've been able to take like the best of the best and their information and the value and what they have presented to the world. And so now I'm just going to kind of reciprocate with that. I'm going to turn around and take all the best of what I learned from all these sages and all these masters and share it with our audience.
I love that because you are, you have applied what they taught you so that you have not only what they told you, but you have the experiences yourself to share like what you have come through.
Yeah, because I've put what they taught, to the test. And did it work or didn't it work? I say all the time, we know success leaves clues. Well, so does failure. So some of the stuff that I learned out there didn't work well for me. And so, again, I'm just kind of filtering it down and bringing what I believe to be the cream of the crop, to our audience. And so that's where I'm going to be coming from.
I love it. So tell me why now? Why are you starting this podcast now?
I think now because I didn't want to do it in the first place, right? I mean, I didn't. I resisted this. But then it was brought to my attention that, it's depravity. I'm depriving people of what I've learned, and to keep that away from them is not right. It's just I've been given so much, so I have a responsibility. And it's interesting because I learned it 30 years ago when I went to my first AA meeting, because very early on I learned that it was my responsibility to help the next guy when he walked in the door. And what I struggled with then, Kim, was like, well, I've only been sober 2 weeks or a month. And what an older guy, one of the old timers said to me, he goes, yeah, but here's the deal. I'm 20 years sober. They can't relate to me. You've got 2 weeks. They can relate to you because it's so fresh for you. So, again, it comes down to the 6 words they taught us. And that was clean house, trust God, and help others. And so that's really what I'm doing here. And so, I'm taking that and that responsibility really that I owe to myself and to the thousands and thousands of people that I've worked with to do this. So I'm ready. I'm really ready to do this.
Well, and we're all waiting on you. That's another thing too, is we're glad you're showing up because we need your wisdom in our lives.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's good stuff. And, I would have never in a million years thought that I'd be able to gather this amount of wisdom in my life and then be able to reach such a large and vast, and an audience who's very receptive. They're very warm. They're very inviting. They want to hear it. They want to be inspired. They need some motivation. They want to hear about some things that might make one little difference in their life and go, oh, wow, I didn't think about it that way. But when you think about it that way, it all comes together. It all makes sense. So it's just really about, and you know what I'm going to talk about, and that is really developing a mindset where we're living our lives in a zone of genius.
And I love that. That concept comes from the book, The Big Leap, and we have been obsessed with that book because it is so brilliant. It's very simple, but it is definitely brilliant. You bring so much brilliance to the world by your understanding of so many different things. Like you said, you've been around some of the biggest masters and sages in the world. And I love that. So who is this podcast for? Because I know it's not for someone who doesn't want to grow, who doesn't want to have a better life. That would be who it's not for. But who is it for?
Well, I think the audience is pretty broad. Right off the top, I think anybody that's had to deal with any catastrophic situations in their life. For me, it started back when I was young, and my parents came to me one day and said, "We're not your parents," and so I had to figure that all out. And then, of course, because my dad started drinking right after they told me that, I started experimenting, and the next thing I know, I was grossly addicted to drugs and alcohol. I was very near death, and then I went to my first AA meeting, and it stuck, and that was 30 years of sobriety. So people that have gone through that, people that have been told things by their parents or their peer groups or whatever, that this is the way life is, and you're kind of the Oprah mindset, right? She was told she'd never amount to anything. She was black, she was a woman, and she was from the South. And thank God she didn't believe that. Thank God she said, no, that's not true. I'm going this way. And so, that's the reality. That's the truth. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I'm going to encourage our listeners to stay in the truth. Stop telling yourself things that aren't true. If you don't want to do it and you don't want to try to accomplish these things, that's fine. But don't make up a lie about it. And so I think that's really where I've been coming from, because again, I came down that road pretty hard. And so I have now seen hundreds of thousands of people change their lives just like that. So it's not a question if, it's just a question if you will allow yourself, give yourself permission to live a wonderful life. Yeah.
And I have insider information, obviously. And so I want to say too that, you have insight even when Oprah walked on fire with you. That was amazing, because something that happened that like triggers something in me is that as soon as she walked across the fire and came to the other side, she made one of the biggest decisions of her business life. And imagine how many decisions she's made in her lifetime. And she made one of the biggest decisions ever. And how powerful that is, that you got to participate really in some of those amazing things over the years. The different people made those decisions on the other side of that fire.
I did indeed. It reminds me, and yes, Oprah made probably the biggest business decision in her life within minutes of firewalking. And that's great. And it's wonderful. And it's on video, and you can actually go watch it and see it for yourself. But I think the sweet spot's been for me is the everyday person, because that's where I'm in. I'm just a blade of grass like everybody else. No, I'm not famous. No, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not an Olympian. I'm not none of those things. I'm just a common everyday guy who learned some things and found a way out. And so that to me is probably one of the most important parts of all this, is that's who I want to get to. I want to talk to the everyday common person who works hard every day and would like a couple of little tidbits of information that will put them in a position to really start to think differently about yourself. How do I control what's going on in here? How can I connect this to here? And that's really the sweet spot for me. So it's about mastering the truth of who you are and what you're really capable of. And it doesn't have to be an Oprah. It doesn't have to be, somebody who goes to an event and who's being told that they'll never amount to anything and their ideas don't make any sense and it's not going to happen. And the next thing you know, they do a Firewalk, and the next thing you know, they go home and they write the screenplay Sleepless in Seattle. So you just never know, right? I mean, so for me, I don't pick and choose. I just make sure that the Firewalk is ready to go and let them go. And then after that, I jokingly say, let the fire do what the fire does, because it won't disappoint. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care that you're Oprah. It doesn't care that it's Kim White. It doesn't care that it's Dave Albin. All it cares is it's going to give you an opportunity to walk across it and do something that there's no way in the world that you would have ever believed that you can do it successfully, because those coals are 1,000 degrees and you can walk on them and you won't get burned. Yeah. So that in and of itself is like, okay, so if I can do that, what else can I do?
Well, and I think it's funny because you and I share something with probably millions of people, and that is on the other side of whatever it is, whether it be a glass walk, a firewalk, an aero braking, there's a million things you can plug in there. But on the other side of it, you look at it and you think with your mind, that's not possible. You just did it and you know you did it, but you're looking at it and your mind will not catch up for a minute because it can't even go there. It's impossible. What you just did was impossible.
Right. And I had that exact experience. I mean, I walked across the fire, and all of a sudden, I have somebody, they kind of stop you and they're going, you did it. And I go, I did it. No, I immediately dismissed it. I'm looking back, right? And they're glowing red. And I'm even thinking I burnt myself at that point. I'm looking at my feet. Thinking they're burnt because I even felt it. I even felt pain and there was no pain. My feet were dirty, but not one burn. And so now I'm in so much disbelief. I want to transfer my disbelief to someone else. So I'm like, hey, did you just walk? And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, did you burn yourself? And they go, no. Well, how about you? No. Everybody gave me no. In fact, one person looked at me like, what's wrong with you? Of course we didn't get burned. And so, yeah, it did. It took a while. And yet there I was standing there, walked on fire. And literally it was probably the biggest transformational moment in my entire life. And then the euphoria started to set in. And then I started asking myself better questions. What else can I do? What else is possible? Came to the event that next morning, and then there was 3,000 other people that were pretty much experiencing the exact same thing I did. And so then I saw it on a global level. I saw it, okay, whoa, this got to everybody. And then that's really when it started for me. That's when I went, okay, this firewalking thing, there's something going on here. That's real. And it just transformed 3,000 people's lives. So maybe you ought to go get some more information. And that's kind of where my career started, right there on the spot.
I love it. I love that you are I love that you're transparent, because you have no trouble telling, the good, the bad, and the ugly from your lifetime. Yeah. And you have no problem encouraging someone if they're homeless, all the way to, the president or the king. You are not someone, and I know you personally, so I can say this, you are not impressed with position, you're impressed with character. And I love that about you, that you are here to seriously influence and empower people in whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. It doesn't matter what gender. It doesn't matter your choices in your life. I always say that we go through things, whether they're inflicted on us or we self-inflict them on us. And you are so amazing at the fact that it doesn't even matter which it is. You're there to help us walk past whatever that fire is. It's very symbolic and very, as you say, ceremonial in the fact that it represents something on the outside that's actually going on the inside. We think things are impossible to do or to get through, and yet you show us that we can get through it. So I'm so proud of you for doing this podcast. I know this was not on your bucket list, we'll say, because because I think sometimes you don't realize how much you have to offer. But I'm so proud of you for doing it, and so proud that you're going to impact millions of lives because of your willingness to be that guy, that opens up and shares.
Well, thank you, Kim. And again, thank you for your encouragement and your guidance and all your help and making this happen, because it's really a collaboration. And I'm very grateful and very thankful to all that. And the one thing I will promise our listeners is that it's going to be real. It's going to be raw. There's not going to be any fluff here. I'm all about, doing whatever I can to encourage you and inspire you, because living small doesn't serve any of us. And, and we need incredible leaders right now. And I'm really going to be, I'm really tuned into the women of our country right now, because, I believe they're the ones that are going to resolve the big issues in the world right now. And I believe the women of the West are the ones that are really going to step up and get this done. I think the men need to step back, be men, support the women, and let's make this happen. And let's live a life here that is about understanding and really just caring for each other. And it's really so simple. There's evidence everywhere that says if you help enough people get what they want in life, you're always going to get what you want in life. And that formula is real simple. All we have to do is follow it.
Yes. I love that. Love that. Well, I want you to have the privilege of signing off your first Firewalk Adventures podcast, episode number 1. So it's all you, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you, everybody. I'm humbled. I'm honored. And I'm really juiced. And I promise again, we're going to give you a lot of really great content. We're going to give you stuff that if you'll use these and practice these, it's going to make a massive, massive difference in your world. My name's Dave Albin. This is Firewalk Adventures. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.